And on the line with us is the Reverend Brittany Caine-Conley, the lead organizer of the Congregate Charlottesville group. CongregateCville.com is the website, and the Twitter handle is also Congregateville, V-I-L-L-E. Reverend Brittany Caine-Conley, correct me if I'm saying any of that wrong, welcome to the program.
Yes, thank you for having me. Glad to be with you all today.
And thanks for joining us. So tell us what's up. What's going on? What are you planning for this weekend?
Sure. Well, we're mostly planning right now to, try to keep our community safe. We are already in essentially a militarized police state with the governor having a state of emergency on Wednesday. So we are already kind of on lockdown in many ways. We also know that there are not any planned or permitted alt-right rallies, but we do still expect alt-right white supremacists to be in town. So we are working to prepare to support and keep our community safe. We are also preparing a service for tomorrow. It's called a service of repair, in which we will be led by 6 really talented women of color who will create an experience that will allow us to mourn, that will allow us to kind of behold the heaviness of what we've been experiencing, but will also allow us to celebrate the resistance that we've had here in Charlottesville. And we're also hoping that it can be a time where those of us, like myself, who need to continue to confront our own complicity in white supremacy, where we can continue to do that as well. So we're looking forward to that service. And other than that, we have trained and prepared and equipped people to show up for something we're calling faithful presence. So we've trained over 100 people in Charlottesville this past year to really show up embodied in their faith, to be alongside the most marginalized folks in our community.
The bio I have for you says you are rooted in the subversive way of Jesus. Can you explain?
Sure. I am confident in my theological understanding that Jesus was a radical revolutionary for love. Jesus, in his ministry, in his life, and in his death and resurrection, really subverted systems of violence. He subverted the status quo. He subverted all of the systems of power and resources and influence. And he did that in a nonviolent yet non-passive way. And in all of my ministry and my life, I try to embody that narrative and that theology.
There's a story that Peter Funk, as I'm recalling, well, in any case, and Elaine Pagels has talked about this at some length, where Jesus said, if a man asks you to walk with him a mile, walk with him 2. If he asks you for your cloak, give him your coat as well, or your coat, give him your cloak as well. If he slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek, or if he slaps you on the left cheek, turn the other cheek. And that in this analysis that they put forward, it's that the Romans had laws at the time that prevented an uprising by the Jews that were their slaves, essentially, or their property. To prevent that uprising they were called non-exploitation laws, that you could just grab somebody walking down the street who was not a Roman citizen and require them to carry something for you up to 1 mile. But after that, that was considered exploitation, and you could lose your Roman citizenship if you forced somebody to carry something more than 1 mile. That the left hand was considered unclean. They didn't have toilet paper. And so if you slapped somebody with your right hand, that was fine, but if you slapped them with your left hand, then you could lose your citizenship. That public nakedness, causing somebody to be naked in public, was a crime. Typically, people had 2 articles of clothing, a kind of a toga and then an outer coat that they also slept in. And so you could require somebody to take off their coat and give it to you, but if you asked for their cloak as well, or I'm mixing up my language, you would force nakedness and you again lose your Roman citizenship. That these 3 acts were wildly subversive, designed to totally upset the Roman order. Is that argument broadly made in the Christian church, or is that something that's more on the I don't want to say the word fringe, but in the realm of biblical scholars?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for bringing that up. Those are some of my favorite verses to kind of dissect and teach about, because it is not widely known in the Christian tradition and in the mainline Christian church. As I kind of have the opportunity to go around and preach about nonviolent direct action and the subversiveness of Jesus, these are often texts that I utilize because so often they're used to tell people to be passive.
Right. Turn the other cheek.
Turn the other cheek. Just let yourself continue to be abused. But that's not really what Jesus was about. You're completely correct in naming that these things that he is instructing folks who are on the margins of Roman society, were nonviolent ways to be subversive, to change the narrative, to flip the tables, if you will. And he did that throughout his ministry. And when he was essentially executed by the Roman regime, that was another way that he's turning the table. He's flipping the script. And I think we too often forget about that. We like to view Jesus as somebody who was just a really nice guy, loving everyone, and we forget that there was this subversive nature, that he was really undoing a lot of the power structures of his day.
Well, might it be that the power structures that have adopted Christianity ever since the Second Council of Constantinople really don't want these stories told? They would much rather people thought that turn the other cheek means, well, if somebody hits you, once in the face, let them hit you twice in the face, rather than turn the other cheek so the person is forced to hit you with their left hand and thus might lose their citizenship. And to this day, look at how Christianity was used against slaves, for example. Just keep picking that cotton. Someday you'll be in heaven with Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. The ways that structures of power kind of squash movements is they absorb them. And that is the way that structures of power have squashed kind of radical movements of Christianity. They have absorbed Christianity into themselves. We see that a lot right now in our country, as American nationalism and Christianity sometimes are the exact same thing. And a lot of what we're doing here in Charlottesville, and I hope folks are starting to do around the country, is to really say that American nationalism is not the way of Jesus.
Yeah. At least as nationalism has been reinvented by the religious right to have a white identity piece to it and a Christian identity piece to it. It's pretty strange stuff. We're talking with Reverend Brittany Caine-Conley, lead organizer with Congregate Charlottesville. CongregateCville.com is the website. The Twitter handle is CongregateVille, V-I-L-L-E. Brittany, my understanding is that the big rally that is the anniversary of Charlottesville that's being held by the hard right is going to be in front of the White House this weekend. Do I have that right? That they're not planning specific activities for Charlottesville, or are they? Are they coming to your town in a big way?
That is correct. The only permitted rally we know by white nationalists or white supremacists is in Washington, D.C. There are not any permitted events here in Charlottesville. We are, at this point, more concerned with white supremacists patrolling our town in small groups, and we are even more concerned with the militarized police state, which puts many of our marginalized community members at risk.
Yeah, remarkable stuff. I wish you the very best. I hope you have a great weekend and keep up the great work. It's fantastic talking to you and meeting you. Thank you so much for being on the program today.
Thank you very much.
Reverend Brittany Caine-Conley, and once again the website congregatecville.com. And the Twitter handle is CongregateVille, V-I-L-L-E. We'll be right back with your calls here on Anything Goes Friday.